Keep hearing about California's $68 billion deficit. $1 billion deficit. Yeah. And the title of this article I'm reading is California's $68 billion deficit. Is this Governor Gavin Newsom's disaster? Some would say yes. Is it? Let's get into it. Here we go. So why do we bring this up? Because so many other entities, so many other cities have a massive budget shortfall as well, right? Well, California's had some pretty aggressive spending. They've needed to because they've got so many social programs going on. They're just handing out money left and right for who knows what, literally who knows what. And this is one of those time periods where, oh yeah, this is not going to work out well because you don't have the tax revenue coming in that you were expecting. You don't have the tax revenue coming in that you've had year after year after year after year. It's not there. A lot of your stuff in the downtown core, it's not there. You got businesses going the other way. They're shuttering because you've got an interest rate environment. You got people not buying homes. Excise tax isn't there. Sales tax for real estate isn't there. Property values dropping in the downtown core because people aren't renting them because the employees aren't there. All of these factors. And in California, you get a $68 billion deficit. Well, this is one factor where I would say, we're going to get into it, but I would say, well, that's a little bit of a reason where Governor Newsom, he might not be the very best candidate for president of the United States, because I think you're going to hear that very shortly. I think you will hear that, whether it's this cycle or the next one. What a mess politics are right now, right? It's like, is this really our best option? This is who we're putting, this is who we're going with? Okay. Governor Gavin Newsom will need to figure out how to close a $68 billion budget deficit when they begin crafting the 2024 state budget. The Legislative and Analyst Office, the California Legislature's nonpartisan fiscal and policy advisory, stated that Newsom should consider declaring a budget emergency to tap into the state's rainy day fund. The outlook means California could also be facing deep budget cuts by next summer when the state's updated spending plan is due. Let's get one thing straight. Newsom has been and will continue to be a disaster for the Golden State. 100% agree. His policy, it's like, all right, take what a normal person would do and then twist it up with some weird explanation as to why we're doing this, some virtue signaling, just piece of crap. And that's what you get in California at your governor level. You just get some, I'm so woke. This is what we're going to do. State leaders have several tools to address the problem, including the $37.8 billion the state has in reserves. So it's not like they're out of money yet. But with the way that California spends, with a big downturn, yeah, it's like New York City has spent all their money basically with the illegal immigrants and doing that whole ridiculous thing. And then they're looking at the budget going, yeah, we're out of cash, got no money. Uncle Joe, can you help us? Could you float us a little loan? Because, you got that wide open southern border and we took in all these illegal immigrants and we thought you'd help us. No? Oh, okay. The report suggested state leaders consider reducing billions for education and halting the use of funds it has earmarked but not yet spent on one-time programs, including those related to the environment and transportation. Okay, so much of the silliness that is going on in society, I think will get whacked with these ridiculous budget cuts that are coming, like reparations in San Francisco. Boom, done, out the door. Not happening. Just simply don't have the budget for it. We've had some really good times. We had some great times. And now not so much. We're entering into what I would say is a soft landing or a little bit of a recession. That's what we've got going on. So this whole budget thing is much more than just the state of California, because I think it's, you're going to have, Newsom's going to run for president, guaranteed. If not now, if not this next cycle, which he's saying he won't, but a lot of people are saying, you can't run Sleepy Joe for another term. You just can't. Guys, just What they're doing to Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, is literally elder abuse. They're hopping him up on some kind of senior meth or senior cocaine, getting him out of there, Adderall or whatever it is. Get out there, Joe, and say something. Try not to mess it up too badly, even though his cognitive decline is so obvious. That is literally elder abuse, in my opinion. One such assemblyman who recently took the helm of the Assembly's Budget Committee said he's hoping to avoid cuts to services, saying that the goal here is to avoid cuts, particularly to safety net services for our most vulnerable. That is the absolute last thing anybody wants to do, he further states. We're unfortunately in a position this year where we're going to have to say no to a lot of things. You're going to have to make some cuts, just like Eric Adams is doing in New York City, putting a little hold on police officers, new recruits, putting a little hold on some things that normally wouldn't do. I'm sure that'll work out fine. New York City doesn't need more cops, right? Yeah. How about we say no to frivolous spending, the author of this article says. What about that? Yeah, what about these ridiculous programs that are getting billions and billions of dollars? Yeah, how about that? Well, it's a start, right? The revenue shortfall is unprecedented, noting typical budgets don't account for large changes in revenue from the year before. The office warned the economic weakness could persist into next. Absolutely, because you're not going to have a miracle cure for all the income in the form of taxes that you should have gotten. It's not going to happen miraculously this next come around either, next year either. Whether the recent weakness will continue is difficult to say. No, it's not. It will be weak for quite a few years moving forward. This type of cycle thing does not happen overnight. It takes a long time for that machinery and the data to kind of rear its ugly head. And if you know what you're looking for, this isn't going away overnight. Let's just say that, right? However, the odds do not appear to be in the state's favor. 100% I agree with that. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good for any of these entities. All of these entities are looking at budget cuts. So it'll be super interesting to see how Governor Newsom in California kind of dodges all the bad PR. But hey, wait a minute. What about the state that you ran? Don't you have a $68 billion deficit? Yes, I do. And here's how we're handling that. Yeah, give some really woke statement. And you'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Despite all warnings that it was unsustainable, California's tax and spend majority increased state spending by $116 billion over the last 6 years. 116 billion with a B over the last 6 years, nearly doubling the general fund budget in that short time, said one Republican state senator who was the vice chairman of the Senate's Budget Committee. There's no budget here, right? It's just, well, we're spending this much. Let's hope that we can come close to that. If not, we'll take it out of our rainy day fund. At some point in time, that rainy day fund is going to get emptied out. The $68 billion figure would make it the largest deficit in California history, and this man wants to run for president. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. The thing is that the voters who brought in Sleepy Joe would vote for Newsom because he's their guy, right? He's got the D in front of his name. Yeah, this is who we would get running the country. It's shocking. It's shocking because so many of the programs that you see that California spends their money on, you're like, what? How in the world do they get funding for that kind of thing? Oh, yeah. Newsom's their governor. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's just not reasonable at all, right? It's the expectations aren't reasonable. Whole thing is just ridiculous. And you talk to people continuously. I talk to people continuously. All right, you moved out of California. How come? Taxes were too high and we weren't getting anything for our money. Our lifestyle had gone down the drain and yet we're still paying for it. State income taxes out the rear end. Utilities are expensive. Cost of life in California, very expensive. And then you've just got homeless people running all over. It's just so poorly managed. You don't hear that from a lot of these Republican states, do you? You don't hear it. I always throw out that I just came back from Oklahoma City. Tennessee just had deadly tornado run through, right? Oklahoma City has the same thing. So, you got that flat terrain, those tornadoes come through and, stuff happens. So that's the flip side. We don't get any tornado action here in Seattle, but we will get probably an earthquake at some point in time, and that will be a big one. It will be a massive one. But the kind of stuff you've got going on in California, I think moving forward with these budget shortfalls, you're going to have to do some things. You're going to have to cut some things from the budget, and things are going to get even worse. You've budget cuts. We always talk about budget cuts. Remember that time? What happened there? Oh, we had a series of budget cuts where boom, the budget gets whacked. Don't have the ability to fund all of this ridiculousness, like the reparations. That's just a super easy example, because all of a sudden we've gone from requesting $5 million per eligible person to take advantage of reparations to $5 million per person, trillions and trillions of dollars being asked for, to down to asking for $10 billion for the program, not getting that, getting $2 million instead, and now not getting that at all either. Just boom, no, that program's done. That program's done. So you're going to see a lot more of that in the next couple of years. And in the meantime, you've got Governor Gavin Newsom running for governor with a $68 billion budget shortage. Now, the thing I would say is that percentage-wise, $68 billion of their current budget is not the biggest percentage of deficit that they've ever had. They've had bigger in the past, and they've come out of it. So it's doable. It's doable. They can do it. But you've got so many social programs and so many hands out for the tax revenue that's there now. And population in California is going the wrong way. You're having fewer and fewer people move to California, creating that net migration number. You've got numbers going the wrong way. Same thing in Oregon. You've got people leaving. You know where people are leaving to consistently? Florida and Texas. Florida and Texas. We are seeing that just all day long. And you can see it in the population numbers. And you can see it. Another story that I was looking at was, all the rental homes are being bought up by BlackRock. That is simply not true. It's a very tiny percentage of the rental homes are being bought up by BlackRock. And in fact, more single-family rental homes are being sold than are being purchased. So that whole notion, yeah, they are buying up some, but it's not impacting the whole market. And that's not why your rents are going up. Your rents are going up because you've got a supply shortage of rental properties, because nobody wants to they don't want to own a rental property when you can have a silly thing like the pandemic come along. Then all of a sudden a governmental entity says, oh yeah, landlords, you guys got to pay for all the expenses of the tenants. Because if, during the pandemic, they can't work, then you got to cover them. In what market does anybody want to own a rental home? And so all of your mom and pop operators have been selling these rental homes off because they're getting good money, and they don't want to deal with the liability of the shenanigans that's being put on them by governmental entities. Since when do you tell somebody they can't charge rent for their home? Yeah, that kind of stuff. So it's that kind of stuff on top of these budget shortfalls that I think are really going to play an important part of this whole equation. But again, the people that have voted in, fine current free leader of the free world, would vote for guy who creates the $68 billion budget deficit as well. That's just how this goes. It's no longer based on, or maybe it just hasn't been for a long time, on actual performance. It's not, hey, you got less of a budget shortfall. Yeah, we're going to go with this guy because this guy, he's our guy and we believe in him. We trust him. That $68 billion budget deficit, that's just not that big of a thing. I mean, budgets come, budgets go. Let's not get so worked up about it. That is literally what folks are saying, trying to justify. How do we vote for this guy? Yeah, we just do. How about the whole Hunter Biden thing? Yeah, that guy's just getting indicted left. He's getting indicted almost as much as Trump. Now he's got some He's got some tax liabilities hanging out there, it sounds like. And that whole buying a gun when he was using drugs, I just don't really care about that. I know it's a charge. So much of this is just straight up politics, isn't it? Just straight up politics. All right, let's charge him now. Don't charge him now. Don't charge him. Oh, let's charge him now. All right, timing's good because it'll take X, Y, Z to get the next hearing. That whole kind of thing. Yeah, it's a wild time we live in. But for reasonable people, we've got news for you guys. I think you're going to see a lot of references to this budget shortfall because it's a huge one. 68 billion percentage of their budget. It's not the biggest ever, but it's a big one. So you're going to see a lot of people kind of point at that and go, what about that budget, that old budget thing? Because I am seeing you make comments about it already right now. It's something that people are able to grab a hold of and go, here's the deal. This is what's happening. 68 billion. That seems like a lot. What's California going to do? Yeah, they're going to do the same song and dance they always do. Raise those taxes, right? You can only cut so much, and then you got to raise those taxes. So how's that going to work out? Well, not well, but it hasn't been working out well for a while. And that's why you've got people that are no longer willing to live there. They are moving away from California. And it's stuff like this, the real rubber hits the road, where people can't get away from it. When XYZ percentage of their paycheck is going straight to taxes for a system that is questionably failed, that's when people make that decision. Yeah, I don't think we want to raise our kids here. I don't want to retire here. Too expensive. It's got all this crazy stuff. You got homeless people running everywhere. Nobody's doing anything about crime. All of those things work together, and you get to a situation where, moving to Tennessee, I'm willing to take that. I'm going to take my risks with that tornado and just see how it goes. The risk of getting hit by a tornado is so slim. But when it happens, yeah, your home can be toast. Wild stuff. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.